It's hot in here. Why does everybody think they got to do a video inside their car? It's 113 degrees in this car. Take a look at this. Look at that, 113 degrees, and I only got 17 miles of gas. Let's go someplace that's a little bit nicer, and when I get there, I'm going to tell you why this is the best time ever in the history of the world to start your own radio show and do a podcast. So, come on, let's go. Well, this is a little bit better. Hi there, my name is Rusty Humphries. I am the CEO of Advanced Media and Marketing. I am the creator of the Podcast Perfection program. I've been in the broadcast business for a long time. Started back in the 1980s. I've been heard on some of the biggest radio stations in the country in cities like New York and Los Angeles and Chicago and Seattle and Atlanta and all over the country. You may have seen me on television, Fox News Channel, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, any one of the big outlets. And for the past 15 years, I've been an nationally syndicated radio talk show host heard on over 300 radio stations across the country from sea to shining sea. Now, I'm here to work with you. Radio has changed quite a bit since when I started. You needed to get a very difficult to obtain FCC license. Then you had to get a job at a radio station. Your boss then was either drunk or high. This was in the early 80s. So good luck trying to get some positive feedback from that guy. You were a slave to the music format. And if you did break through, that same boss would probably get mad at you because he should have been the big star. So after taking for granted listeners and advertisers and air talent, broadcast companies have gotten themselves into some trouble. They never saw the internet coming. Smartphones have replaced radios, and now radio companies are in big trouble. How bad is it for radio today? The biggest broadcasting company, iHeartRadio, is $22 billion in debt. Cumulus, the other big radio company, is in the midst of a fire sale. The biggest, most important radio stations in the country are being sold for pennies on the dollar. Arguably the most legendary radio station in America, WABC, was sold. Now, the shock wasn't just that it was sold. This radio station was worth over $200 million a few years ago. It sold for $12.5 million. Well, we've had some fun out here in the lake. Let's go back to the studio. I want to talk with you about you and a podcast, why now is the best time to do a podcast, how I can help you look great and sound fantastic and get you that influence that you so richly deserve. So let's go back to the studio and find out more about podcasting and how I can help you be the next podcast star. Whew, okay. A lot cooler in here. Okay, why did I tell you all that stuff about radio? Was it to depress you? No, it's to excite you. You don't need a radio station anymore. You can do it yourself, and I can help you. Listen, there are over 670,000 podcasts listed on iTunes right now. Good news is most people don't do them anymore. They do about 10 episodes, and then they get bored and they disappear. If you're passionate, if you're committed, I can help you have a successful podcast. Do it not only just on iTunes, but on Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and I like to add the power of video as well to take you to a whole new level using Google and YouTube and all of those platforms. Now, what is it we're talking about here? My job is to make you look good and save you time, effort, and money along the way. I'm going to help make your audio and video podcast easy and efficient. We'll get you the right equipment. I'll coach you how to look great and feel confident on the air. I'll get your podcast on iTunes, Google, YouTube, Spotify, and all the other big ones. I'll co-host your show with you to help keep you on track. I'll work with your team to get you maximum exposure. I'll help you be more efficient with your podcast and shorten your time commitment. And most importantly, I'll keep this podcast process fun. We're going to have a great time.
Hi, it's Suzanne Summers. I'm with my pal here, Rusty Humphries. I've done his show so many times. He's sold so many books for me. You should get together with him. It'll do you well.
So if somebody's thinking about doing a show or a podcast, would you suggest they work with Rusty?
One of the smartest guys I know. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Dion and I were both named after great singers of the past who now do infomercials.
My plastic surgeon doesn't want me doing any activity where balls fly at my nose. Well, there goes your social life.
I had the great pleasure of working with Rusty, and he's really fantastic. He's kind and understanding, and he teaches you how to have fun. So if you're interested in doing radio or a podcast, then work with Rusty.
Stay calm. Nobody wants to see you cry like an idiot.
I'm Dick Cheney, yes, I'm the real Cheney. All you other Dick Cheneys are just imitating.
Was the radio host who made those recordings, nationally syndicated radio host Rusty Humphries.
Hi, this is Ted Nugent with Rusty Humphries.
I'm by winning. I win here and I win there. Now what?
Rusty, shut up and listen.
Gary Busey, what an honor it is to meet you, sir.
Well, it's great to meet you, too.
And Mel Brooks is here.
I can't believe it!
Andrew Breitbart is there.
Oh, hey, Rusty, how are you? Speaking of bigwigs like Rusty Humphries.
Thank you.
I'm Chuck Woolery, and my good friend Rusty Humphries will be back in 2 and 2.
Come on, boys!
Hey, Rusty. Rusty Humphries, yes, sir. The way you're lollygagging around with all them microphones and them podcasts, you'd think it was 120 degrees right there in Phoenix.
Can't be more than 114.
Now, listen, Rusty, I know that all your podcast friends, they love you, pal. I swear they love you. And when you ain't looking, they're singing your praises. The Camptown ladies sing this song, doo-dah.
Camptown racetrack 5 miles long, all the doo-dah day. One run all night, one lonely. Money on the ball building, somebody bet on the bay.
So how do we start this podcast thing? First, we'll spend some time getting to know each other and decide what kind of a show you want to do. Do you want to host it yourself? Maybe you'd like me to co-host with you so you can feel more relaxed, or maybe you want to do it with a friend or a colleague. It's all about making you feel comfortable and confident on the air. I'll spend about 2 weeks working for you in pre-production, creating your show's look and sound and online accounts to get things ready for that first program. Then together, we plan and prepare for your first broadcast. And now you're ready, and we go live online to let the world see you shine. I'll make sure everything you do sounds great. Then I'll release your podcast around the world within minutes right after your live show is over. And then you'll be seen and heard everywhere, at any time, on any device, on demand.
Check it out. This is my studio. I have a podcast and I want you to start listening to it.
So the way it works is each week, you and I will create a fully produced podcast up to about 60 minutes in length, although I think 30 minutes is kind of the sweet spot for a great podcast. And I'm going to be with you every step of the way to make sure that everything is perfect. Now, don't worry. It gets easier after the first couple of weeks. And as a matter of fact, it starts becoming second nature. And working with me, by the time you're getting used to it, it's going to start becoming fun. Because my Podcast Perfection program is so exclusive, this program is limited to a few select applicants. You should be ready to be an influencer, excited about having your own podcast, and be committed to do an informative and interesting podcast. This is not a set it and forget it program. What makes this program different than all the other podcast programs out there is that I will personally help you along the way to create your perfect podcast. And working with me is like rocket fuel for your brand. I include my Podcast Perfection program exclusive equipment list. This is the exact equipment I used when I hosted my award-winning nationally syndicated radio show. You'll have what the pros have, and you'll sound amazing. You'll have this impressive-looking studio to show your guests and your clients and your friends. This goes a long way into improving your brand and growing your influence in your community.
Hey, my name is Greg Kelly, the CEO at World Mission, and Rusty hooked us up today. We are going to be in the podcasting business. I had no clue what we were doing. Rusty has been a blessing, helped us with all kinds of equipment, got this room set up, and we're excited to be doing podcasting at World Mission. Encourage you to connect with Rusty. He will help you out, take you from 0 to 100, everything you need to know about podcasting and how to get the right equipment and sound great.
Because each studio setting is different and the setup is pretty complicated, I usually come to your location and set your studio up so we know it's done and done right from the start. Costs a little bit extra, but it's well worth it.
You know, I always wanted to do a podcast, and I was so scared I was going to do it incorrectly. I didn't know all the things that were going into doing a podcast. And I reached out to my friend Rusty Humphreys. He was referred to me by a good buddy of mine. He flew out here. He had a checklist. He worked with my team. He even got in a car and found the best microphones out there. He went the extra mile to make us comfortable. And in a day, I was shooting my podcast. I was infused with confidence. And I could not have done it without Rusty Humphreys. So if you're even thinking about adding a podcast, I would definitely recommend Rusty Humphreys.
I'll also include my exclusive pre-production checklist. These are my insider tips and methods of what makes a great podcast. A lot goes into making a great podcast, and I give you a list so you know exactly what to do to get everything ready. I'll even help complete some of those tasks for you. Now, I have done literally thousands of hours of radio and TV and movies and podcasts, and no one knows better than me that you need a roadmap for every broadcast you do. It can be difficult, it can be time-consuming, and you'll receive my Podcast Perfection Roadmap that will guide you through your show, saving you time and effort and helping you feel confident right from the start. Guests are important. I love guests. They help you give your audience a different perspective. They can also help spread the word about you and your podcast. But how do you get a guest? And how do you get them ready so they are prepared mentally and technically? We've got you covered there with my exclusive Podcast Perfection Program guest prep sheet. And because this is an ongoing, highly exclusive program, as I create more and more content and products, you will have access to them both online and a physical hard copy, so you can have this incredible material with you, this information ready at any time, right when and where you need it.
If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the A-Team.
My name is Dwight Schultz. I'm a professional actor and a radio talk show host aficionado. In the early 2000s, I became aware of Rusty Humphreys because he was one of the great talk show hosts in this country. He was incisive, he was talented, he was funny, and he could dissect the problem and throw a solution back at you as opposed to just throwing the problem back in your face. Around 2008, I got to meet him. Then I got to fill in for him on his program. It was a great privilege, and I'd do it again.
Penny. Penny. It doesn't matter if you're super smart or just want to do something fun. I just want to create some really cool shows and work with some great friends.
And if there's ever a problem, just send up a signal and I'll be right there. And who knows, maybe we'll even win an award together. Yes, it's a real Oscar.